Brawl, Deathball, Rush, Bulldozer, Goats, whatever it is that you want to call it, the idea of running down your enemy like a group of barbarians and pummeling your enemy has been around for quite a while now. It may look like a pretty simple composition to play, but I will tell you there are a lot of dummies out there that need a little bit more help, and that is where I come in. If you are new around here, what's up? My name is Paz, and I'm a 4.4k support player that specializes in Ana with a ton of high-level coordinated team experience. I may not be the smartest Overwatch League coach in the game, but this is a For Dummies guide, so it isn't like it was meant to be the holy grail of Overwatch guides by any means. Enough stalling, let's get right into it. Brawl takes a lot of forms, but generally refers to a team of 6 that is attempting to primarily close the distance on a team and take close range engagements, all the while staying tightly knit through rotations. I say generally because over the years, many different variations of the comp have been played with varying speeds, or tempos. That is why a video like this is needed. The overall spectrum of Brawl can get pretty complicated, so we are going to heavily simplify it, saying that there are 2 sides. Those compositions that are slower and those that are faster. Both sides are still fast compared to other compositions in the game though. The speed is being compared to the average Brawl composition speed, which is smack dab in the middle here. It is important to note before moving forward that this spectrum only truly applies when it is a matchup against a Brawl composition. If the enemy is playing Spam, the speed of all Brawl comps is very similar, as Spam is far slower than any Brawl. On the left, you typically have compositions that utilize characters like Zarya, Hanzo, and Ana. This is because these characters benefit from having a little extra time to build charge, break shields, or look for that perfect anti-nade. Once one of these conditions or a similar one is met, then the team will typically speed the Reinhardt in and win the close range battle. On the right, you typically have compositions that utilize characters like Doomfist, Reaper, and Moira. All of these characters benefit from running down the enemy and getting close and personal extremely fast simply because that is the way the bulk of their damage is done. Unlike the slow end of the spectrum, once a composition like this commits, there is no going back. You either win or die trying. The middle of this spectrum is home to no characters in specific, but rather different Brawl and hybrid Brawl compositions that are typically complicated to explain and utilize a slew of different characters and tempos. Let's talk about the composition and each of its moving parts, however. Most of the time, the standard Brawl composition will almost always have a Reinhardt and Lucio. This duo defines where the fight will take place and how the team will rotate to force the enemy out of advantageous positions, allowing the team to fight where they want to. This plays directly into what Brawl compositions always want to accomplish. Right now, D.Va is really strong alongside the Reinhardt, as she can be extremely aggressive alongside Defense Matrix's insane potential. She also has the ability to deny strong off angles that can create problems for her team. This allows Rush to be played against heavy spam comps on some maps, as the 2 seconds of mitigated damage the ability provides is enough time to rotate through difficult spaces. Zarya's bubbles don't really accomplish this. Sigma is another option to pair with Reinhardt if you're looking to play a slower Brawl with a character like Symmetra. This can help her get her level 3 beam faster, amplifying her damage, making her an absolute menace. You can also pair him with the Hanzo because it allows the Hanzo to take more aggressive angles within the mid-fight. Lastly, Winston is sometimes seen in the extremely fast Brawl composition that I like to call Bulldoza. While it isn't super conventional, it is a good IQ check to pull out on your enemy team to see if they understand what to do against it. What I will say is that this composition you see on screen will most definitely work on close range maps in lower level comp games. In higher games, yeah, maybe not. Moving on, DPS in the support alongside Lucio generally follows the tempo that the off tank sets up. If you have a Zarya, the DPS will generally play something like Cassidy and Mei. Sigma really slows things down and can bring out a Hanzo, and D.Va brings many different DPS duos together depending on the maps and output numbers on that specific patch you are playing on. Baptiste is essentially played with all of these combos unless the player is really struggling to survive against a dive-centric enemy, or playing Moira instead will boost survivability. Let's centralize things though. No matter the team composition you are against, there are 2 common things you need to worry about: staying stacked and rotating together. First, staying stacked means to all converge on the same or similar targets at the same time and take similar pathing. The number 1 reason most teams struggle with Brawl is that each individual part is doing their own thing instead of coordinating into the hive mind. I cannot stress enough how important it is to not split. The only time in which you might look to split up even a little bit in a brawl would be to establish an off angle to apply more pressure. Doing so can make the fight faster, but you'll also be at an increased risk of the enemy team isolating you from your core, so do so sparingly. If you're just learning this composition though, just make sure that you're sticking to the basics and you don't get too carried away. Splitting from your core is so important to not do when you're playing Brawl that teams assign specific people to make sure that players aren't trailing too far from the core. I personally fulfill this role for the team I currently play for. It is as simple as seeing your team splitting up and calling a stack on a specific target. For example, stack on your Rhine or stack on point. When you get used to looking for this situation, you can also combine the two calls together. In other words, stack on your Rhine on point. Many of my viewers are support players, so if you see situations like this, make sure you speak up and keep the team together. You have the best view of the fight, which puts you in the best position to fulfill this communication role for your team. Let's discuss the next point though, which is rotating together. Aside from staying stacked, this is another huge problem. On top of this, it is arguably harder to fix. 2 seconds is a very long time in terms of Overwatch, but being on autopilot for even a split second will get you killed, especially as a support. Teams specifically look to engage into a brawl composition when they are rotating because it is a huge point of weakness. Look at these two rotations. One is very obviously easier to collapse on than the other. Just look how easy it is to kill the support. Staying tightly knit with a predetermined pathing plan is so important for this reason alone, which leads us into our last point of the video, playing Brawl into other kinds of compositions. I will try to keep this as simple as possible, but keep in mind there are tons of moving parts and minor changes can change huge details. So if you're playing a Brawl into an enemy Brawl comp, navigating the game all comes down to playing your tempo better. Some speeds play better on different maps, but at most levels, so long as you play your comp to your tempo, you can defeat the enemy. Don't play super fast when you have an Ana and Zarya. Give yourself time. Likewise, don't stand in the open forever when playing a faster Brawl composition. Set yourself up in an aggressive position and take swift engagements. Moving forward, when playing against spammy poke compositions, it is usually a matter of forcing them off the high ground or destroying what is on the ground against Pharah. It is easier to show this visually. When playing spam on defense within King's Row, teams will generally have their Sigma on high ground here with an Ashe. So that leaves you with two options. Option 1 is to just rush to point with your team and play under this little divot so that the Sigma can't shoot you. The problem is, generally Orisa is already anchored on point, so you don't get any progress, and Ashe can actually take advantage of the high ground here, and the whole team will just surround you, which mitigates your whole viability with this option. So option number 2, which I prefer personally, is to go on a rotation around this statue, and actually go under the spam composition, because then you can actually walk up this staircase, and it forces the spam to rotate off of this high ground all the way around until they can't rotate any further and they have to drop to point, which then, after you've been following them on the Brawl, will actually make it a much easier fight on point right here. Another way to actually initiate this is to rotate all the way around here in this alleyway and speed across with your Lucio. I just think that's a little more dangerous, but these are the options that you have, and when you use it in practice, it works out pretty well. Playing Brawl against dive compositions is pretty rough, but a lot of it comes down to keeping the supports alive and playing on point, since it is the one place the enemy has to play. At the end of the day, if they don't maintain a foothold on point, they ultimately will lose the game. Something that is common though in this matchup is to change your Baptiste to Moira almost immediately. The Mortality Field gets forced out way too frequently while Moira has all the tools she needs to thrive. Let's take a step back before we close out the video though. How will Brawl play in Overwatch 2? Will it be similar or completely different? I predict the composition at heart will still play to maintain stacked and rotate around together, but without an off-tank, Reinhardt will definitely struggle. I actually believe that Zarya will have her chance in the spotlight when Overwatch 2 finally releases, when teams want to get up close and personal. But at the end of the day, I don't have all the answers and this segment is purely an educated guess. And there you have it, Brawl for Dummies is complete. Hopefully this was enough information to guide you to an understanding of this composition. If not, and you are still completely lost, take these 3 things away from this video. Stay stacked, rotate together, and play to your tempo when playing against another Brawl. Many intricacies of this composition idea have been left out, but this will most definitely help guide you through at least the basics of the composition. This guide was by no means meant for a Contenders player, but hey, we are dummies, not Contenders players. Brawl is pretty simple once you get the hang of it, so let me know how it goes. If you liked this guide, consider checking out my previous guide for the Brig Zen composition. Also let me know if you want to see guides for other compositions like Double Shield, Spam, and more. Thank you so much for watching, but until next time, I've got to peace out and Paz out. I'll see you in the next one.